Hello and welcome. My name is Kevin, and this is the very first episode of this podcast. I'd like to create a space for storytelling, reflection, and the potential of creating something, well, a little special, dare I say, a little sacred, a connection to our common roots. In this season, we're going to be exploring Vedic mythology, not as a fairy tale or a fable, but as something that's still very much alive, something that still speaks if we are quiet enough to listen. Now, in the West, we often think of myth as something that is untrue, fabrication. But in many ancient traditions, including the Vedic tradition, where this podcast takes most of its inspiration, myth was never about fiction. It was about truth, but passed down through rhythm, symbols, and allegory. Not something to be proven, but something to be received. In Sanskrit, the word shruti means that which is heard, and it refers to the oldest and most sacred teachings of the Vedas. These weren't written down at first, they were listened to. The mantras were repeated, embodied, so they could be remembered. And in many ways, that's kind of what I'm inviting you to do, to take a return to listening. Now, you may be wondering, why deal with myth at all? Why talk about it? And especially why now in the modern world? Because honestly, I do think that we are living in a world that is so saturated with information, but I find starving for meaning. We scroll and react, we consume, but stories, and I mean real stories, one that have big arcs, ones that ask us to slow down, ask us to look inward, ask us to hold paradox. These are rare, yet still that heartbeat remains. The myth has never left us. It's always been waiting in the background, you know, coming through in a movie or sometimes echoing in a poem or in a dream. Something that the mind just can't shake. These ancient stories aren't irrelevant. They're archetypes. They show us the shape of what it means to be human, of struggle, of transformation, of ego, of love, of death, of rebirth. They speak to us in metaphor because sometimes that's the only language big enough, well, to hold our experience. So that's hopefully how this podcast is going to work. Each week, I'll share a myth or part of one, sometimes Vedic, sometimes from another culture. So because, stories travel. They travel across time, they travel across geography. But we're not just going to hear the stories. Hopefully, we can ask the questions of them and let them stir something up inside of us. Maybe even see how they can apply to this strange modern world that we live in. So, to begin, I want to offer you a simple idea that stories, especially sacred ones, they aren't meant to be explained as much as they are received. And let that may be, or dare I say, our orientation. That this journey take us not only to understand everything, but to feel our way, to sit with what resonates, to notice what irritates, and to see where each story can take us. In the Vedic tradition, knowledge isn't poured like water into an empty cup. It's evoked. It's drawn out like a song that you can remember in your bones. The guru doesn't just give the truth, they give a mirror. And that's kind of what I'm hoping we can do with the podcast, for it to be a mirror, a story, a moment, a moment of myth in a noisy modern world. So next week, we're going to begin with the story of Shiva, not as some kind of distant deity, but as a symbol of consciousness, dissolution, stillness. So until then, let's keep our ears open, keep our hearts open, listen to your breath, listen to your heart, connect to those myths that never stopped speaking. I'm Kevin. This is Diary of a Chubby Yogi, and well, thank you for listening.